and then that's when cooking became my career. And eventually I met my wife and we started a catering company. And at one point we had 50 full-time employees and 100 part-time employees. And I found myself as a chef, just managing a company and not cooking anymore, but cooking was my passion. So I bought a barbecue pit to reconnect with cooking and take on a new culinary endeavor, and just fell in love with cooking with fire.
That's great.
By the way, I just opened the front doors because this sounds like a fun chat, and anybody who gets here early might want to listen in.
I was born in Texas, but somehow ended up in New York City. So when I got married to a woman from Memphis, the first thing I did when we moved into a house was buy a grill and a smoker. And then I found a barbecue contest in Long Island that I signed up for and fell in love with competition barbecue. And then somehow I ended up starting up a blog, grilling.com, with Kingsford. I was working in public relations full-time in New York, and they approached me. So I was editor of that and grew that on the weekends and on the commute home. And then I just got tired of being in New York, so we moved to Memphis 8 years ago. And now I get to hang out at home and cook and play with Meathead and see good people like Tuffy on the road. And it's a good life, much better than the 7 days a week, 24 hours on call world of public relations.
Wait a minute. You're not working 7 days a week, 24 hours?
Oh, you know I am. You call me all the time.
I call you in the middle of the night to make sure you're still on the job. No, I'm kidding. Beth, do you grill and smoke?
You know, I've started to get into it. We work with Ray Lampy. He's our spoke chef.
I know that, yes.
He is my like personal guy that I call when I'm like, oh, Ray. Yeah, like, hey, I can't get my little green egglet. What do I do? So yeah, I'm definitely learning. I will say, for me, I grew up in agriculture, you know, on a beef cattle farm, and I work for the turkey industry, and it just kind of naturally equated to like, you know, we want people to try turkey in different ways outside of the holidays, and the barbecue, you know, community loves their protein. So let's see, you know, what they can do with turkey that's different than what you might typically get. So it's been a lot of fun. I've met some awesome people and eaten some really good turkey.
Yeah. How many years have you guys been doing that thing at the American Royal?
So this would have been our 4th year at the Royal, but unfortunately didn't happen. So, but this was actually our 2nd year doing like a competition series.
Gotcha. And Meathead got into barbecue because he was born Meathead. When you're named Meathead at birth, you kind of got to get into barbecue or butchery.
I got into it through my dad. My dad was just a regular old backyard barbecue guy, and he had, I don't know if it was a Weber kettle, but it was something like that. And he used to grill on weekends. His specialty was flank steak, and he knew how to do it right. And I just loved hanging around the grill. The smell, and the sizzle, and then the end product. I mean, you know how flank steak is. You can cook it hot and fast. You get that great crunchy exterior. If you cut it right, it can still be tender, and it's just so full of flavor. And it was just my favorite meal. And you know, the fact that he might have let me have a little sip of beer while I was hanging around with him probably helped a little. But that was and then when I got to college, I was living in an apartment, and I seemed to be the only one among the 4 roommates who had any interest in food. And I would schedule my classes so I could watch Julia Child in the morning. And there was a section of town. There was an old barbecue joint, YT Parker's. It was a dump. The guy actually had a pit in the backyard, and I would hang out there enough that he would let me sit around back with the good old boys and learn from them. That's where I learned barbecue, is YT Parker and Parker's Barbecue. And you'll appreciate this story, Tuffy. I was working my junior and senior year in college in a bar as the assistant manager. Well, it was a liquor store in the front and a bar in the back, and I managed both. And on every Thursday, I think it was, some guy would come in and he'd have this styrofoam cooler filled with ribs. And the smell was just amazing. And he'd sell them to the guys in the bar. And it was great for business because we'd always pack the house that night. We didn't have food. And everybody would buy slabs of ribs. And I would buy a slab and take them back to the dorm or the fraternity house, wherever I was living. Well, it turned out that was Sonny.
Oh,
Of
wow.
Sonny's Barbecue in Florida. I didn't find this out until about 5 years ago.
Wow.
But that was Sonny just getting started. I don't know if you guys know about Sonny's Barbecue, but it's a chain in the South, mainly in Florida. And this was Sonny just getting started, cooking in his backyard and selling ribs in bars around Gainesville, Florida.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
great.
How about you, Ryan? How'd you get in this game?
So my dad had restaurants growing up. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, and he had restaurants, and it was one of those don't ever get in this business. So,
you know, and I think my speaker just died.
Oh, we
Can you
hear
hear
you
me?
just fine.
That's good.
All right. And then, yeah, him and I worked together for a number of years. And when he was kind of ready to retire, he's like, "You want to buy me out?" And I said, "No, I'm kind of done with this." Then I went to work for a meat company in Ohio, and then we got bought out by the Chef's Warehouse, who actually owns Allen Brothers as well. And I
Yeah.
transferred up here about 2
So
years.
Chef's Warehouse is also, they're New York as well, right?
Yeah, huge in New York. That's our main hub.
Yeah.
Is in the Bronx.
Yeah, we've been buying from them. I'll tell you a quick story about them. So when
Well,
I went,
let me interrupt you here, Tuffy,
Okay.
real briefly before we'll hear that in a second, but it is officially start time.
all right.
So,
Yes.
Clint, you want to welcome our attendees? We have a small group
Yes.
already here, about 20, and let them know what we're up to tonight and the topic. And then, Tuffy, you got to tell us the rest of that story.
Okay.
Yes, welcome to our monthly Zoom happy hour with Pitmaster Club members. Each month we try to focus on a different topic for the first hour. So being that it's December in the middle of the holidays, we're going to talk a little bit about holiday barbecue and grilling. And I pulled together an esteemed panel tonight to touch on a number of topics. And we definitely want to hear from all of you. If you have questions, post them in the Q&A box or whatever you call that thing. Just type it in and we'll see it and we'll read it for you. First, we've got Ryan Stopper of Allen Brothers, and I know our Pitmaster Club members are very familiar with the fine quality products Allen Brothers offers. We've done some special offers just for Pitmaster Club members in the past, and he's going to talk a little bit about who they are, what they do, some of his favorite cuts. We also have Beth Breeding from the National Turkey Federation, and she has somehow pulled herself away from all things turkey in the middle of the holiday season to join us. So I know she's got some good stuff to talk about. And finally, I'm not dismissing you, Meathead, but Tuffy Stone is our last panel guest. Tuffy has been on countless TV shows. I'm sure you all know him from Barbecue Pitmasters. He's got a great cookbook, one of my favorites, alongside Meathead's book, Cool Smoke. If you don't have it, put it on your holiday gift list. Yeah, and well, before I forget, we actually do have a holiday gift list up on the site now, as well as our picks of the top new products of the year. So be sure to check those out when you're giving out your list of things you want for Christmas, so you don't get stuck with socks. But really, I just want to, this is going to kind of flow naturally. Tuffy was in the middle of a story, so we'll let him finish that up, and then maybe Ryan and Beth can talk a little bit about their respective jobs, and we'll kind of let it flow.
Just let me slip one more thing in here briefly. Order of business here. If you have questions for anybody on the panel, you can ask any individual or the panel in general. Use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. The chat button is a way for you guys to chat amongst yourselves. I'll try to keep an eye on it, but I'm watching the Q&A area specifically for questions. So Q&A to talk to the panel, chat to talk amongst yourselves. Be nice now. Take it over, Clint.
So the story I was, so Chef's Warehouse, we started buying groceries from them for our catering company in Richmond, Virginia, but they were coming out of New York. And so this is all about the same time that I go off what I call the barbecue deep end, where I really just fell in love with learning how to cook with fire. And I hadn't, I hadn't spent much time cooking barbecue in my culinary career at this point. This was all a way just to reconnect with cooking. So I just, anywhere where I could find knowledge, I was reading and talking and trying to learn about barbecue. Made a lot of bad barbecue, but so I started buying all these different briskets from Chef's Warehouse. And so I'm talking to my sales guy, and I was like, I want to get some dry aged brisket. I want to see how this turns out on the smoker, which I would say it's probably not a good choice for smoked brisket. But anyways, they says, yeah, we can get you some dry aged brisket. So they shipped these 2 briskets that come to me, and they're in these boxes, and I open them up, and they're whole briskets, bone in. They look like something from the Flintstones. It takes me hours and hours and hours with a knife to like debone these dry aged briskets.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did a lot of things like that, and I'm still learning all the time. But I would say shy away from dry aged brisket for smoking, and don't get it bone in.
Yeah, and we can all blame you and the rest of the pitmaster crew for introducing everyone to Wagyu briskets. Now you got to spend that's why I got out of competition barbecue, because I had to spend about $50,000 just to show up.
You got to mortgage your
A
house.
single Saturday.
Yeah.
Maybe walk away with a little plastic trophy. But
I'm looking at the attendee list, and I see a lot of our most faithful fans and regulars. Humidora, who is, I think, now forgive me, it's either Brazil or Argentina. He's here tonight. He makes and sells pits, really nice designs too.
yeah, he joined us for our stick burner.
Right.
A couple
He was
months
on our
ago.
panel for stick burners. And of course, Husky's here and Mr. Bones. And so we've got a good crowd here of folks who like barbecue and know a bit
We have a
about it.
Meathead and a Mr. Bones.
That's right.
So, yeah, I'd love to jump off with Beth, if that would be cool. I'm just very fascinated by a person who works nonstop with turkeys all year.
Me too.
I'd love to hear more about the National Turkey Federation and how you guys, I met you several years ago, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago at the American Royal. So maybe how you guys got involved with the barbecue scene as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to be here. Followed you guys for a while, but never had the opportunity to join. So thank you. I work for the National Turkey Federation. For those who are in the competition space, we have a barbecue ancillary category called turkey smoke that you might be familiar with. But we are a trade association that represents the turkey industry, from the farmers to the processors and kind of everybody who in between who provides things to help raise turkeys. But one of our missions is to kind of increase awareness of turkey products. We've kind of got like that holiday thing down on lock pretty good with Thanksgiving, but turkey is definitely a year-round protein. So just trying to think of new audiences to kind of reintroduce it to. And our first thought was the barbecue community. Who loves protein more than folks who are grilling and smoking and doing this, as their hobby or their profession? So we kind of came up with this whole turkey smoke competition idea to reach kind of the competition folks, but we're also transforming it into an outreach campaign for just folks who are grilling in the backyard, and different ways that they can try turkey and find recipes that are maybe different from that dry turkey that they maybe grew up with at Thanksgiving. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell, but it's been a lot of fun, and turkey is certainly not boring. I've had some really delicious stuff over the past couple of years.
So white meat or dark meat?
The dark meat is where there's the most flavor for sure. I think you guys might disagree, but a lot of people think that it's similar to pork. It really can get that, take in the flavor and have all that good moisture and stuff. So I would go for the dark meat.
Have you got a
And
good
it's, and it's forgiving. There's a reason that competition cooks almost exclusively cook thighs, right, Tuffy?
Yeah, it's if you overcook the dark meat a little bit, it's still going to be some moisture there, and if we overcook that white meat, it's usually going to be
cardboard,
a lot drier.
I was happy to see this Thanksgiving, just poking around on social media, how many people are doing their turkeys outdoors. I think that
it's a trend
of everyone wanting to try a deep fried turkey has finally gotten out of everyone's system, and they've gone to the right side.
The firefighters were pretty busy, I think, when that was like a huge trend. People were.
Yeah, I think it's had its day now, but people are starting to realize that it's such a flavorful way to do your bird, not only during the holidays but year round.
Well, most important, if you do the turkey outdoors, that leaves room for more pie indoors.
True.
Yeah,
we call it thinking outside the oven. So, you can spend some time outside, not necessarily be in everybody's way, especially this year when I know that a lot of people aren't wanting to be in close quarters or indoors. We saw a lot of people for Thanksgiving who were looking for smoking recipes or a new recipe to use the new toy that they bought over the past 2 months, because I think everybody bought a new rig of some sort to try out. So it's been really popular.
Do you do turkey for Christmas?
We do turkey for Christmas and Thanksgiving and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, pretty much every day.
How are you going to do your turkey this Christmas?
Well, we typically do a turkey breast at Christmas because, like a lot of households, we like to have a couple of different options. And pretty simple, really. Last year I did a buttermilk brine so that kind of the outside of it got super, super crispy. I'm not sure if we'll try that again or do something different.
One of my earliest memories involving smoking and grilling was my grandmother Stone. Her name was Florence, and outside her kitchen for many holiday meals, she would have 2 bullet smokers, and she would smoke turkeys. And I can still remember that smell. I can still remember that smell, and she was just amazing. But we were talking before we were all talking earlier before we actually officially started this podcast tonight, and we were all talking about smells. But I can remember the smell of my grandmother's 2 bullet smokers, cooking turkey.
Wow, I wish my grandmother had met yours, because she had a turkey roaster, and she'd cram like a 20-pound turkey in there, and it would cook for about 6 days until it was just leather. Most god-awful thing ever, but God rest her soul. It was still a delicious meal.
So Beth, do you have some? Think all of us thinking towards the holiday season. We're not likely going to be gathering in large groups, but we're going to celebrate. The COVID is not going to stop us from participating in our holiday events and festivals, even if the attendance is small. How have you got some good ideas, some fun things we can do with turkey?
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of options. And kind of like we've been talking about, this is an opportunity maybe to try like some of those dark meat cuts to maybe get away from what you might traditionally do, especially if it's a smaller crowd. Turkey thighs are great on the smoker. Add a lot of flavor to them. We've got a great recipe for turkey thighs with a homemade cranberry barbecue sauce. Super simple, has all the flavors of the holiday that you might want, but is definitely a smaller dish and something a little bit more unique. We have seen this year a lot of people into like a roulade or a roll up, kind of making your favorite stuffing and putting all the favorite veggies or even some fruits and nuts and stuff like that in it and putting it inside of your turkey breast and rolling it up. Again, a smaller meal, but kind of allows you to pick and choose what you want. So, if you're not going to be doing the whole bird, there's a lot of other options that are really good, and you might find a new favorite.
Turkey breast is really good for doing stuff like a roulade. Anybody listening who wants to check out on AmazingRibs.com, I have a recipe for what I called turketta, and that's a term that I've been seeing more and more of, but I think I was among the very first to use it years ago. But basically, you take a turkey breast and peel the skin off, pound it flat, and roll it up with a bunch of dried fruits or whatever you want, sausage, stuffing, and wrap that skin around it and throw it on the smoker or the grill. And then you get these gorgeous slices with a pinwheel swirl in it. We have some questions for you, Beth. Hacks for to prevent the turkey from drying out.
Well,
Don't overcook it.
exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to say, don't overcook it. I
Get a
think
damn thermometer.
that's the biggest thing. Meat thermometer is your best friend, and when you're cooking anything, and just don't overcook it. Then the number you're looking for is 165 before you serve it. That doesn't mean that's necessarily when you pull it. I think I see Tuffy nodding his head. It's gonna get up. You're gonna let it rest. It'll get up to temperature if you pull it a couple of degrees early, but you just want to make sure it hits 165. Don't overcook it. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and Beth, we talked yesterday a little bit, but one thing that I always tell people is to make sure you look at that package when you buy the turkey and make sure that it's not labeled moist and tender, whatever they're calling it, because it's been pre-injected with a salt solution. So, everyone talks about brining their turkeys and whatnot to keep them moist, but that's a great way to salt out all of your guests.
Definitely know what the product is that you're getting. There are a lot of different options. If it is a product that already contains a solution in it, you could still brine, but you probably don't want to brine overnight or any significant period. Instead, maybe do an injection. That's more for flavor, I think, than that, because it's going to stay moist regardless with that in it.
How do you do turkey, Tuffy?
You obviously need to be careful about what you say for legal reasons, but I think personally that pulling that turkey off at 155 to 160 is a real good move. And if you study the charts that the scientists have shared with us, they're not easy to find, but they're buried on the USDA site. They're pretty darned safe in that temperature range. And when you allow for carryover, bring it indoors, you're carving it, or if you rest it, it's going to get, you don't have to be worried about that. 165 mark is on the edge of cardboard.
I would just say that make sure that it gets up to that eventually. But yeah, I think pulling it, you're right. The carryover is definitely is gonna probably work in your favor. But I just yeah. And I mean, one huge thing that we see is that folks don't allow enough time to defrost, which
Yes.
then means that their whole process is messed up and it just doesn't normally turn out well because then you're kind of rushing around and panicking. So make sure to leave plenty of time for whatever you're cooking, not, even if it's not turkey, to let it defrost properly. And for heaven's sake, don't put it in your swimming pool, your kiddie pool, your dogs, whatever. Just don't do it. I saw so many articles over the weekend of like Florida man defrost turkey in pool. I don't know what's going on in Florida. Just don't do it.
Oh my God.
How do you do your turkey during the holidays?
Kenneth Calhoun's asking about turkey wings. Have you ever done buffalo turkey wings?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a buffalo turkey wing, but I have had a lot of other kinds of turkey wings. They're great, and they're just a lot more meat on them than a chicken wing. So don't order them and think that you're getting a chicken wing. They kind of look like a pterodactyl wing or something if you get the whole thing. But no, I think those are great. A lot of people, kind of fight over the wing on a turkey. So
They get
instead
really
of just
crunchy.
getting a turkey with two, get a bunch of wings.
Yeah. And we have a greeting from Bert. I'm not sure what his last name is. He says, "Hey there, I just retired from Foster Farms. You're a poultry producer of choice on the West Coast." So he's sends his greeting.
Foster Farms is one of our members of the National Turkey Federation, and they're out in California. So hi, Bert. Congratulations on your retirement.
I will say if you're cooking something smaller like a turkey breast or a turketta this holiday season, you are missing out on the leftovers. So that is a good reason. That's a good reason to do I did a spatchcock turkey for Thanksgiving and that lasted, we had leftovers for a couple days. I did a turkey gumbo, smoked turkey gumbo with the leftovers. So it's
my wife did a turkey pot pie the other night. It was delicious.
Nice.
So do you brine the turkey every time or no? Because in the past I've always brined a turkey, but this year we actually didn't, and it turned out pretty moist. But and do you recommend brining all the time?
It really depends on the product, but yeah, Tuffy, go ahead.
I brine things more for flavor really than moisture. I think the key for and we beat it over the head with having moist turkey is to not overcook it, to allow that meat to rest, which Meathead spoke to. Also to understand that it's going to continue to cook once it comes off of the smoker, and that temperature is going to continue to rise. So you need to pay attention to that. And I would say the same thing that Meathead said too. I would be a little, I'm not afraid of not cooking that turkey quite as done as some people might say that you need to. Clint talked about spatchcocking, which is a great way to cook poultry. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, I doubt anybody on Meathead show doesn't know what spatchcocking is, but we would just remove there you go. And that'll shorten that cook. I tend to, if you know how your heat travels on your smoker or your grill, I'm going to put that dark meat towards the hot side, and I'm going to put the breast towards the cool side, because I'll take the doneness a little further on the dark meat than I will on the breast meat. But I agree with Clint too. I don't think of a whole turkey as one meal. I'm thinking about it. This process is going to be 3 or 4 meals for me, and so it's going to be the initial cook and some nice beautiful dark meat and some white meat. Maybe I'll do some nice condiments to go with that on the side. It's going to be sandwiches for me. It's going to be gumbo. It's going to be turkey soup. It's going to be hash. And so for me, this whole process of taking this big beautiful turkey and I'm thinking about, like, we just had at our house 2 nights ago turkey soup, and so there's so many things that we can do with it. So I'm in the same camp with Clint and thinking about all these beautiful things that I get to make, with this whole turkey, from the first night or day to all that, it might be little turkey biscuits on sweet potato rolls with I don't know.
Sliders.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Let me
Sounds so
jump in
good.
on some of these issues here. If any of you have read or played with sous vide, you understand that the process of killing bacteria is not just temperature, but it's time and temperature. And so the idea that you need to cook it to 165, at 165, all bacteria die almost instantly. But you're warming that bird up gently. It comes out of the fridge at 38 degrees approximately. And it's slowly going all the way up to 160 or whatever your target temperature is. On the way, as it gets past 130, most bacteria can no longer reproduce beyond 130. So you're now killing. In fact, most of them start dying around 120, but there's a couple who hang in there to 130. So at around everything between 130 and the end, you're killing bacteria. If you're cooking at a low temperature, there are plenty of exposure to heat. And the key here is what the USDA and others consider is safe. How many bacteria will likely still be alive at 165? 0. At 160, at 155. And it's related to time. You can make turkey pasteurized perfectly safe at 140 if you keep it at 140 for a long time, and that's the way sous vide cooks work. Now at 140, its texture is kind of weird. You may not like it, but the idea here is that there's likely 0 bacteria or pathogens in that turkey in the 160 range, or even as low as 155, especially if it's hovered there for a little while. And remember, the warm air cooks the outside of the turkey, but it doesn't go inside the turkey. The heat that's built up in the surface of the turkey, which is makes it like a battery. It's a capacitor. Energy is stored in the outside of the turkey, progresses down to the inside. So the outside of the turkey cooks the inside of the turkey. So as you take it out of the oven, the grill, the smoker, there's still energy stored in the bird, and it's working its way down, and they call that carryover cooking. So it's going to go up another 5 degrees after you take it off. And I tell you, when you get in that 165 range, you're really in a range where it's borderline dried out. And I think just dropping it down to 160 can make a huge difference. And if you're courageous, you're not going to likely face a problem by dropping it down to 155. And when it comes off, it's going to get up to 160. And it can make a big difference in flavor. Now, the other topic that we've been chatting about here is this business of brining. And Beth touched upon this. Most turkeys you'll find in the stores today have been what they call enhanced. I think that's the commonly used term. It means, now I'm not sure, I think it's 8%, Beth. Is that the normal number?
Yeah, and it can definitely be a little bit less, but it'll clearly say it on any package.
8 to 10% enhanced. And if you read it carefully, it means they've injected it with salt, maybe some other things that essentially are brine. I mean, they're brining it for you, and they're adding moisture, which doesn't, makes it more moist. So that's not bad. But of course, if you add 10% water, you've also increased your profit 10%. So it's a good process, both for you and the manufacturer. But I wouldn't shy away from a turkey that's enhanced, which means essentially it's been injected with a brine, and salt will enhance the flavor, and it also enhances the moisture retention So I don't think it's a bad thing. But if it's already been enhanced, you want to be careful and not add too much salt. If I've got an enhanced bird, I won't brine it. I might sprinkle some salt on the surface. And that's the other thing is I'm not a big fan anymore of sticking in a vat of apple juice and garlic and black pepper, and none of that can penetrate the bird. The only thing that penetrates is salt. So just sprinkling salt on the surface is all you really need to do. The night before, give it a nice sprinkle of salt. We tell people half a teaspoon of kosher salt per pound of meat, and let it sit overnight. And that's called dry brining, and it does the job perfectly.
Now, before we get over, I want to jump over to Ryan in a second and talk about some of the cool cuts he and I were talking about the other day. But one of our members had a question: why did turkeys still come with those useless pop-up thermometers? And I actually know why. There's a man named Eugene Beals who back in the 50s or 60s invented this thing, and they have to keep putting them in so he can send all of his great-grandchildren to college. Is that the answer, Beth?
I've never met Mr. Beals, but
Yeah, well, I think he passed away. He's about, I think he invented them in the late 50s.
yeah, so it's really just another way to protect the consumer. They're a good indication of doneness, but you should always use your meat thermometer to make sure that it's actually reached that temperature. And for a lot of consumers who maybe aren't as experienced at cooking as folks who are on this chat or in the barbecue space, I think it can be helpful for them.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think the other thing is these things are set. They don't go off to like 170 or 175. Yeah. So by the time your pop-up has popped, you're already overcooked.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is I yank that pop-up out and throw it away.
Yeah, I would just say definitely be checking on your own throughout the process. We say 3 different places in the whole bird: the breast, the wing, and the thigh, just to make sure that it's all kind of cooking evenly.
So I thought we'd play a little game, Ryan and Tuffy. Ryan and I were talking yesterday about some of the more interesting cuts. Everyone talks about doing their turkeys and doing their prime rib and doing their beef tenderloin for Christmas and New Year's, but they've got some really interesting cuts over there at Allen Brothers. So maybe, Ryan, you can call out a couple of them and Tuffy can tell us how to cook them on the grill.
Sure. And some of these might be a little more towards smoking or braising and finishing on grills, but just to give you a heads up there, Tuffy. But we wanted to kind of bring some ideas that were a little bit different, like you're saying, than tenderloin roast or standing rib roast or something like that. So, some of the things you mentioned Wagyu earlier. I think we sell quite a bit of Wagyu around the country, and some of the domestic producers we deal with, they do a great job. And you mentioned brisket and stuff, but I think, one item that I love, which I think is one of the most flavorful cuts on any 4-legged animal, would be the cheek. And I don't know.
Oh, I'm gonna braise that. I'm gonna smoke it, and then I'm gonna braise it. I'm gonna get some moisture.
Do you actually sell cheek?
We do, yeah. We do. Wagyu cheeks is kind of our number one cheek seller, but a good amount of pork cheeks as well. And then we'll do veal cheeks as well.
And then Tuffy's probably making some beautiful ravioli with a homemade bolognese sauce with the braised.
Really good. Now I have not had dinner yet. Y'all probably haven't either. No, I think that
I lost you guys.
Great.
Yeah, we
can still hear you.
Can you hear us, Ryan? That looks like Ryan's speaker is.
That's all right.
Now
Have you cooked a lot of beef cheeks, Tuffy?
It's funny. It's pork cheeks mostly. I have not done much with beef cheeks.
Guanciale.
but I'm a fan of that kind of cut and
Yeah.
so, putting some, it could smoke. I mean, I feel like with Meathead show, I would be talking about grilling
Oh,
and
no, no.
smoking, but it could just be seasoned and seared in a Dutch oven and some aromatics with herbs and carrots and onions and celery and peppercorns and getting a good brown on there and then deglazing it with there's so many things we could deglaze it with, and maybe a little bit of stock or demi-glace or something like that, and simmering it. But I like your idea about once it's cooked to tender, turning that into a ravioli or a nice pasta or something like that. Or
Yeah.
maybe if you don't want to go through the work of making a ravioli, maybe you just take some cut pasta and still do pair that with pasta. But it's interesting because we gave cheeks as a challenge on one of the episodes of Barbecue Pitmasters. I think Johnny Trigg was on that episode, and but it's a challenge. It's a challenging cut if you haven't cooked it before. So
What did cheeks sell for?
They're not terrible, but if you're buying just regular commodity beef cheeks, they're cheap. If you can get your butcher to do them, they're probably happy to get rid of them for well less than $10 a pound. I mean, you're probably less than $8 a pound at a retail place. But I mean, when you get into Wagyu cheeks, you're going to be talking more, probably $15, $16, $17 a pound, and that's going to come with the fat. So you're going to have to do a little bit of cleaning there and some yield loss. But they're manageable. That's the nice thing. And
Ryan,
yeah,
are these cheeks mostly going to restaurants and hotels, or are you seeing households cook them?
mostly hotels, restaurants, chefs. But yeah, I mean, a lot of like you're saying, they're using them for like a different way to do stews or something. But a lot of people are smoking them, finishing them in a braise, and then overnight letting them sit, and then finish them on a really hot grill, and that gets that char, and then you just kind of break it apart or serve it whole, and that flavor is just outstanding.
Meathead, you talk about sous vide cooking. It would be, I haven't played with cheeks in sous vide, but that
I'll
would
bet.
lend itself to be really
Yeah.
We
good.
call it sous vide Q. Bring it out of the sous vide bag and then sear the snot out of it on a hot grill. Oh my!
Yeah.
For those of you listening who are not familiar with Allen Brothers, you might be, because they have been kind enough to make special offers to the members of our Pitmaster Club discounts. But they are on the south side of Chicago. They're one of the last remaining meat houses in Chicago. It used to be the slaughterhouses on the south side were massive. Most of them have moved out, but they're still there. They've been there since the 1800s, and they made their bones, pardon the pun, on beef. And in recent years, they've expanded into heritage hogs and even seafood variety. But beef is still their cornerstone, I think, and their bread and butter. And they carry a nice range. But my favorite, well, they have a lot of USDA prime, which is what you're going to find in your best restaurants. They're also selling Wagyu and Mishimata. I forget you'll tell us more about your options there. And they have massive aging rooms. So if if you want aged beef, dry aged beef, if you wanted dry aged beef, used to be the only place you could get it was in a restaurant. But you can order from them 28-day, 45. I've seen 75-day aged beef in there, in their aging rooms, and they're breathtaking. The place is really polished, clean. It's just a really remarkable operation and facility. I've toured it 2 or 3 times, and we were saying before the show, I always keep a half a dozen of their USDA prime 28-day wet-aged steaks in the freezer in case somebody pops in. They're just superlative. And if you haven't seen them, that you go check their website. And I presume you've got cheeks on it. I don't know.
I don't believe there's cheeks on there yet, but after this,
After
there may
tonight,
be.
they will be.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Hey,
Yell fire in a crowded theater. Why don't you?
To add to what you're saying, is just the thing about us that I love is that, you know, we've been around for over 125 years. And when I tell people, if you would have kind of walked in to what we looked like 100 years ago to what we look like today, it's going to look very similar because we're still hand cutting everything. We're still artisan butchers. We're aging everything right. I mean, there's no machinery other than our packaging equipment. And I mean, it's just, we're old school butchers. And to your point, the majority, you know, we're cutting probably more prime beef than anybody in the country. And, you know, our biggest thing is, you know, for you all, when you go to our website, you can find the same steaks that we're selling steakhouses all across the country. We're going to offer them up to you to cook in your home. And I mean, you know, obviously everybody on here and what you all know about food and cooking is pretty amazing. So, you know, we just want to offer the best products we can to you at your house. And that's kind of our philosophy, is to make sure that we're just constantly offering the best stuff we can. So, and then, you know, when it comes to Wagyu, we have a pretty big selection. Everything from Japanese A5, if you want to spend that, you know, definitely have that. We generally will do strips, ribeyes. There you go.
That's I don't know if you can see this, folks, but this is in their cutting room.
Yeah.
And on the left is your Japanese, I believe, and on your right is American Wagyu.
Yep. So we'll do the Japanese. We'll do American two ways. So we have American from Mishima, which is F1, which is basically it's 50% Wagyu, and then it's another 50. The other half is Angus. So a little less marble, but still packs a really nice punch. It's a little more affordable with the crossbreed of Angus. And then we actually partnered with a smaller producer last year called Lone Mountain, and they're pretty unique. They're out of New Mexico, and they do 100% full blood Wagyu, and their stuff's just amazing. So I mean, it kind of falls in between where that domestic Wagyu you saw there and the Japanese A5. The marbling falls probably a little closer to the A5, but for being a domestic product, if you go to our website, the Lone Mountain stuff is fantastic. So they do a great job, and it's much less than the Japanese stuff, and it eats almost as well.
So here's their part of their aging program, and this ties into one of the questions that Jesse is asking. A little cheeky, pardon the pun. Is dry aging meat at home the new fried turkey? Something that sounds good and is popular, but actually isn't that great of an idea. I think you've really encapsulated there, Jesse. I think you're right. I think dry aging at home has been catching on. There are several little refrigerator type boxes and gadgets that help you dry age at home. They work, but it seems like a lot of effort and expense. And I got to tell you, folks, I've written about this on AmazingRibs.com. If you've not had dry aged beef, get some from Allen Brothers before you dry age it, because it is not for everyone. It is a very distinctive flavor and tasting profile, and a lot of people just don't like it. And the longer it dry ages, the less appealing it is. This is
What's your opinion on dry aging versus wet aging, Tuffy, from a chef perspective?
Well, you know, I wanted to say a couple of things. Like,
I'm sorry for the racket, but that's the airflow in that room there where they do their dry aging. But you can get dry aging in a whole variety of stages.
Sorry, you were saying, Tuffy?
So I was just going to comment a little bit. So I have had some dry aged meats that kind of get that blue cheese kind of funky thing going on that I don't always appreciate. But I got to say, folks like John Tizar and Adam Perry Lang are doing some really amazing things with their dry age processes. And so we had dinner one time at Knife in Dallas, and we had dry age beef that had gone to like 265 days, 270 days. And it was very subtle. It was a beautiful, beautiful tasting cut of meat. So I think go to Allen Brothers and get your dry aged beef, and I think you'll find really, I think you'll find really pleasant tasting product there. And perhaps there's so much with the environment in which that meat is dry aged in, and that whole, and Ryan, you can speak to that a lot better than I can, but the aging room and the molds and from what I understand, white mold is what you want, and but that whole environment and the flavors that it takes on and these nuances, I think every chamber, every facility creates different tasting flavors. Going to the dry aging versus the wet aging, I've done a lot of wet aging. That wet aging is something that I did a lot with competition barbecue, and as long as that brisket, and this is what I was aging or wet aging, was in that vacuum sealed bag in a really cold environment, you got to know the pack date. You got to know the date that beef was harvested. A lot of times you're getting meat in a case. Usually the pack date the same day that the beef was harvested, and so I've wet aged in a really cold environment, 55 days, and had really good results. But Ryan, you guys are the experts. Talk about your dry aging room and how many days.
So I mean,
let me jump in real quick before you go there, Ryan, because I just want to make sure everybody understands. What you're seeing here is the exterior of the meat, and that mold is growing on it, and it's turned brown, almost black. You're not going to get that when you buy it. That is just oxidation and bacteria action and mold action. They'll trim all that off, maybe a quarter of an inch, and once you trim that off, it's beautiful beef underneath. It looks a lot like what you expect beef to look like. Usually it's a bit rosier and redder in color, but it's dehydrated. These rooms, the airflow and the time and the bacteria and the mold suck moisture out, so it really concentrates flavor. But don't worry, you're not going to get a piece of meat that looks black or covered in mold.
No. Yeah, we definitely take that off, and the good stuff's under there. But, Tuffy, to your point exactly, it's what I think you have a hard time achieving at home is if you look at these rooms. So one of our rooms, and it looks like that is actually the room. We have 4 dry age rooms, and they all have different flavor profiles, and they're all different ages. And so this room right here that you're showing, that's one of the oldest rooms in the nation. So we've had that room for about 35 years. And you hear people say, oh, we've got a dry age room, it's 100 years old or something. Probably not the truth, because there's been a lot of regulations that we had to put in place, 35 years ago. But this room has had so much different good mold, good bacteria, and kind of different, we call it funk, in and out of that room over that course of time. What you get out of that room after, say, 35 days compared to one of our other rooms after 35 days are 2 totally different taste profiles. So what I always tell people with dry age, it's pretty subjective to what do you like? And I ask people when I'm in restaurants with chefs, it's like, do your guests want to be punched in the face, like a hard punch to the face, a little gut punch, or like a little pinch on your leg? Because we can kind of hit all those profiles, and that's the thing that I think, Clint, to your first question about dry aging at home is what you don't necessarily get is that good mold and that good funk building up over time, because it's just, I mean, unless you blow out your garage and build a really nice room for yourself,
Yeah.
it's probably one loin at a time. And it's going to take you a long time to really build up that goodness that you want to really achieve that kind of butterscotchy, blue cheesy flavor that I think most people that like dry age, that's what they're looking for. But really and truly, with our different rooms, we can kind of hit any type of flavor profile you're looking for. But I'd say if you haven't had dry age, I would definitely suggest giving it a try. It is a different flavor. I'm a fan. I love it. You know, it's kind of that old school steakhouse steak flavor. So you go to some of these old steakhouses, been around for 50 years. A lot of, like, you know, everybody knows Peter Luger's, but they got their own dry age rooms and things of that nature. But you're getting dry age pretty much every cut. And but to do it right, you really do have to control the humidity. You got to control the temperature. It's pretty exact, and you got to have. You heard those fans in there in that one video. You got to have that constant flow of air.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, putting it in the back of your refrigerator, you're going to achieve mold, but it's probably not the right mold to increase flavor. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. You really want to have your right setup to make sure that you're not getting yourself sick, I'd say.
Yeah, that could be
Jim,
a very expensive and sickly experiment. So I think you're better
Jim
off.
Kustin
Quick
asks if you
question.
have bison.
What's that?
We have Jim Kustin asking if you sell bison.
We do, yeah. Yeah, definitely. We bison tenderloins, ribeyes, you know, ground beef burger, ground bison and burgers. We'll do stuff like that. But again, the sky's the limit to kind of what you can get nowadays. We deal with a couple wild game suppliers, and you know, if it's out there, we try to find it for people. There's some pretty exotic things you can get. But yeah, bison definitely very lean, very lean. So just watch it that you're not overcooking it. It cooks a little bit differently than, you know, like a prime ribeye or something like that would.
So one of the things that we wanted to cover tonight is some tips for some of your favorite holiday cooking, entertaining, Christmas dinner, Hanukkah, New Year's Eve, Kwanzaa. We've already passed the what was George Costanza's holiday? Oh, come on, help me, huh?
Festivus?
Festivus. We've missed Festivus, haven't we?
I don't know. I didn't get any Festivus cards this year, but
Yeah, I think Festivus is gone, but all the other holidays are still out there waiting for us to celebrate. So maybe Tuffy, what are some of the things you like to cook, you like to do for entertaining, easy, hard, whatever? What are some of the things that you might
reverse
suggest?
seared prime rib.
You know, I think right now, I think there's a couple things to talk about. One is how many people are coming to our gatherings this year, and I suspect a lot of households and a lot of families are having smaller groups than maybe in a normal year. So, like we just celebrated Thanksgiving, and we had 5 at our house, and I had my mother-in-law, and she's in her mid-80s. So we were very conscientious about having this meal in a way that everybody felt safe. So what I did is I had all my foods prepared on my kitchen island, and then I had plates, and we ate. We were distanced. We had you know, some eating at one table and some eating at other tables, but we made that food to where you could serve yourself, and it was platters of food, and that was what I would call a buffet style service. But another thing to think about too is how do you want to enjoy your guests, or are you going to be in the kitchen or out at the grill all day long, you know, do you get to enjoy your guest, or are you just cooking? And so for me, a lot of times I strategize my holiday meals, thinking about the work that's involved with it. So I will try and bring in side dishes that can be done in advance, and maybe all I have to do is bake it off in the oven when my family gets there. I might have meats that are marinated, and all I got to do is pop it on the grill, and it's a quick cook. You know, I think another thing is having, you know, steering people, say, all right, Meathead, you're making dessert, and Beth, you're gonna bring the turkey, and Ryan's gonna bring the steaks, and Clint's gonna make corn pudding. So I think strategizing it a little bit in terms of being up. I think back in my beginning days of being a chef, you know, I'd have all these people over, and I wanted to cook the best food ever. And by the time I washed the last pot, everybody was saying everything was great. Thank you. We'll see you. And I didn't get to hang out with anybody because I was just, you know, cooking. And so I think menu strategy is really, really important. And I think that, you know, I think portion size, if we are cooking for smaller groups right now, you know, it might be a pork tenderloin instead of a pork butt. It might be smaller cuts of beef rather than, you know,
And maybe ribeyes, thick ribeyes instead of a prime rib.
Yeah. Yeah, you touched on something really important there, I think, too. I occasionally hear people asking me, all right, well, for Christmas dinner, I'm doing a prime rib, a brisket, and a turkey. And I have a 22-inch Weber Smoky Mountain. Which goes on the top shelf? What time do I put them in there? What temperature? And it's like, dude, you don't show off. Don't show. You're biting off too much. I know the temptation is there to, you know, to show off, to show. I mean, you're a great cook, but I think it's a really good idea sometimes, especially if you've got good ingredients. Get out of the way. I mean, I love a great steak, and I know how to make a great sauce. But when I cook a Allen Brothers steak, it's salt and pepper and get out of the way. You know, I mean, I'm very much conscious of temperature control. I'm very much if it's a thick steak, I'm going to reverse sear it. I'm going to get it perfect, but I am just not going to monkey around with beef Wellington and Duxelles and all that stuff that goes with it.
You know, I'm a sucker for a steak, a Caesar salad, and a chewy red wine. I love a steak, and I get to teach a lot. And one of the things, and I think it was a lesson that I just had to learn personally, but I get this beautiful steak, and I get my grill just right, and I'm like you, Meathead. I very simply seasoned, some fresh cracked pepper and some kosher salt or a really good sea salt, but not much. And I take that steak out to my grill, and I put it on the grill, and then I go inside to check the score of the football game. And I look out the window, and all of a sudden I see all this smoke coming out of my grill. And so I teach people, if you're gonna take a beautiful cut of meat, stay at that grill. And if you're gonna leave the grill, take your timer on your phone and set that timer to be an alert for 3-4 minutes, whatever, you know, depending on the thickness of whatever it is you're cooking. But it's just such a shame to have a beautiful cut of meat and to overcook it. And so I think staying at that grill, or at least putting a timer, can help manage that product to where you don't overcook it. And you know, we talked about turkeys, and you know, done this that way. Beef's the same way. We don't, you know, unless we're doing those cheeks, we're going to take it to a high temperature. But these beautiful steaks you were just showing us in that aging room, we don't want to overcook those, and we want to understand that this carryover cooking is going to happen with the steak as well. and letting that piece of meat rest for the right amount of time is going to make for a much better eating dinner.
Yeah, let your steak rest longer than you think. I would suggest, you know, no less than 5 minutes. But if you're got a nice thick steak, let it go 10, 15 minutes. There's not a problem letting it rest that long, because it really will enhance the eating experience for you. If you take it off the grill and put a knife to it, you're going to diminish the quality of that steak pretty severely.
I want to show you guys a short. I'll jump around. It's only a 4.5 minute video, but this is the flank steak. It's the Wagyu flank steak from Allen Brothers. Wagyu for me is not my favorite cut of meat because it's really rich, really unctuous, and it's too much over the top for me. I love flank steaks, but the Wagyu flank steak they sell is breathtaking. It is so tender, and flank steaks can be tough, but this is how I cook it. And in less than 5 minutes, those big old monster flames.
I need to get you a new wood guy there, Meathead.
Those are grapevines. I have grapevines on my property, and I put them in there, and in 5 minutes, they go from these 8-foot flames down to embers, and then the flank steak goes on, and it takes about 5 minutes is all to cook. Put a lid on for just a minute. If one side's cooking fast than the other, I let it hang out. That's the skinny side, and the fat and the hot side. All this is taking place in about 5 minutes. And when it comes off, look at that thing. It's got some char, and the flavor of the wood is just beautiful. And there we go. There's the finished product. It's really a fun technique too, pretty spectacular. And those flank steaks from Allen, the Wagyu flank steaks are pretty amazing.
You know, you talked about something though about Wagyu and how unctuous it is, and sometimes I will cook that a little hotter to kind of render that fat out. You know, prime. And well, let me ask you this, Ryan. When it comes to y'all are working with so many different producers. I mean, let me back up, Ryan.
Sure.
How many times do you eat beef a week?
It depends on the week, but I will tell you that in the last 2 days, I've probably tasted at least 20 different steaks. I'm not eating the whole steaks there, but we've been, you know, we go through, we test a lot of stuff. So last 2 days have been a lot.
So different cuts, different producers, different fat contents. Do y'all find sometimes that you prefer to cook them a little more done, or cook it a little on a hotter grill to get a better chew?
And I think you nailed it with Wagyu. You know, if you're cooking it on a grill, get that thing ripping hot. If it's a pan, whatever it may be. But, you know, Wagyu really has such high fat content that you go over medium rare, you may as well maybe just have eaten a different type of steak. So if you're going to buy Wagyu, I think it's quick cook times, and you're really hard searing every side, getting it out and slicing it, and there you go.
Start collecting grapevines.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I had no idea, but that's a beautiful thing. That those grapevines are cool.
You can't cook a very thick piece of meat over it because they burn down to embers almost instantly, and then you've got well over 1,000 degrees in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got a question in the Q&A here that I want to point towards Clint.
Yeah.
What's a good holiday recipe for ribs? Something different than the usual barbecue technique. What is you're really Clint is For those of you who haven't noticed, Clint's byline appears on a lot of our recipes. Everybody thinks that I write it, all that stuff, but Clint's got a big part of it. And he's really creative and innovative. And so there, I gave you a chance to think of an answer, Clint.
Yeah, I'd probably wrap them in bacon and smoke them again, but
Oh,
I don't want to kill people for the holidays. So
What about
I think like a soy ginger, something Asian.
yeah, I go Asian.
Asian be good, or what about taking some kind of fruit? I don't know if it's cranberry and making some kind of glaze out of cranberries or something that brings in that fruit tart spice.
Mhm.
Good. I was actually, Tuffy, I was looking yesterday at the grocery store at apple butter and thinking that could be really cool to rub down the ribs.
Pork and apples is like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, they're a natural combination. Pork chops with apples, but I'll bet apple butter and of course apple butter's loaded with brown spices, which goes well with pork. Yeah.
And it's very festive. I think of apple pie and stuff during the holiday season, but that could be a lot of fun.
How about you, Beth? What is something out of the ordinary, off the beaten path that you've done with turkey that's fun?
Well, one thing, going back to the leftovers conversation we were having before, we work a lot with Ray Lampy, Dr. Barbecue, for folks who are familiar with Ray, and he's a lot of fun, but we were just kind of like going back and forth, shooting some ideas for leftovers this year. And one thing that he came up with that looks so good that I cannot wait to try are these turkey bacon bombs. It's all of your favorite leftovers from the holidays. So your stuffing, your turkey, wrapped up in bacon. So not only do you get like that first flavor blast, of the Thanksgiving flavors, but you put it on your grill or smoker for, an hour, and you get like this incredible bacon flavor and smoke flavor throughout it. So I haven't tried them yet, but he's made them and they look incredible. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
That sounds awesome.
What's your favorite stuffing?
I love a cornbread one, but where I'm from, we call it dressing.
Yes.
We definitely don't stuff anything inside of the turkey, but I like the cornbread. I think that it needs a little bit of spice too. But this year I had a tamale stuffing that was really good, or tamale dressing. It was excellent.
What I can't stop thinking about, Tuffy, I was going through your cookbook the other day, is that smoked pork chili. I was thinking of doing
and then it's got cannellini beans in there, and I'm a sucker for cannellini beans.
Yeah, so like on the leftover front, I was thinking about doing a pork butt or even a pork collar, which I think Ryan and those guys sell.
They do.
Doing that for New Year's Eve and then making that chili the next day.
Well, so that's a perfect example. I talked to her about, I used to have a friend, he'd say, plan your work and work your plan. But a dish like a chili or a stew or soup is something that we can make in advance. We can get all the garnishes ready for it. So, you wake up next morning, all you got to do is figure out when you're going to heat it up. I like a lot of textures when it comes to things like that. So you can come up with some interesting garnishes that have some, crunch to them. But that pork chili with those cannellini beans, to me, it's so good. And it's got jalapenos in there, and not every jalapeno. The jalapenos to me are so interesting. Some of them are hot, some of them have no heat whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And, you just gotta figure out whether yours are.
We grow them, and it's Russian roulette. You just don't know, Yeah.
How big is your garden, Meathead?
My wife is she's upstairs now studying for master gardener. It's actually a degree they give you.
Yeah.
And she is a master gardener, or will be shortly. And we have a pretty substantial gardening space that she has optimized. And in the month of August, there are weeks when I won't eat any meat. It's just whatever's in the garden, you know, eggplant, zucchini, tomato, you name it. You know, I'm here in the Chicago area, frozen north, and everything just, the garden is just wonderful in August.
So I have a quick question, and Clint mentioned this earlier, and I'm very intrigued. But you guys were talking about smoked cocktails, and this is happy hour.
Yes.
So, what is that about?
Well, I'm working on another book, and I have a whole chapter on the subject in there, and it's a lot of fun. I've been doing a lot of experimenting with it. There are a variety of ways you can apply smoke to your cocktails. I mean, one of the simplest ways is just cut some lemons in half and put them on the grill and char the cut side and use that lemon juice. It really takes a lot of the acidity out, accentuates the sweetness, and use that lemon juice as your sour mix or a garnish. You can take simple syrup and get it good and cold and put it in a smoker. Smoke is attracted to cold surfaces, so it will settle on the surface, and you can now have a smoked simple syrup, which you can use with your smoked sour mix. You can smoke water, or what we'll often do is smoke ice cubes. You take ice cubes, and again, the principle is smoke is attracted to cold surfaces. So you take ice cubes, put them in a baking pan, put the baking pan in the smoker, and they collect smoke, they melt. Then you take the water out and you refreeze them, and now you have smoked ice cubes. And boy, they really they really amp up a cheap bourbon. They're a lot of fun. You can use a pre-smoked ingredient. You can use mezcal, Rausch beer, which is a smoked beer, or Scotch whiskey, Lapsang Souchong tea rather. They're all pre-smoked. Or you can smoke a bunch of those ingredients. I will often grill or smoke tomatoes. If anybody's been paying attention to me, in August, I just start yelling at everybody, go get your cherry tomatoes, poke a few holes in them, throw them in your smoker at 225, and when they get to be like raisins, pull them out. They're, oh my goodness, they're spectacular. And you throw them on pizzas, you throw them in a salad, you focaccias. Smoked cherry tomatoes are marvelous. Well, you can smoke whole tomatoes too, and you can make a Bloody Mary with a smoked tomato in it. You can smoke fruits, apricots, bananas, citrus, and smoked salt. You can put a smoked salt rim on your margarita. Oh gosh, smoked paprika. We make our own smoked paprika. We have sweet red peppers in the garden, and when they're ripe, we pick them and dry them out, dehydrate them in the smoker, very low temperature. They get a lot of smoke flavor, and you grind them into a powder, and you have smoked paprika. Or you can buy smoked paprika. There's this gadget, the smoking gun. It's like a hash pipe from the 60s. And you can put the tube in your drink, and it will flavor the drink. Or you can put the tube inside the glass and just get some smoke on the inside of your glass, and then shake up your cocktail and pour it in the glass. I've taken a torch and put it on a wooden plank, just char and burn the wooden plank, and then put the glass upside down on the smoldering wooden plank. You can use liquid smoke. Enough.
Well, actually, what I started doing, I've been making the smoked simple syrups, but I go through a buttload of these sparkling waters. So I got a soda stream, and instead of making soda in it, I make smoked simple syrups, and then I carbonate the water and make my own canned water to drink.
That sounds like fun.
It's much
They,
cheaper.
and they even sell cloches, which are a glass dome that you can put things in with the smoking gun and stuff. It's just a lot of fun ways you can play with that. And it really is a nice flavor. It amps it up.
We are already an hour and 45 minutes into this. I want to play my game round 2 really quickly.
Okay.
Ryan, we talked about a collar yesterday. I thought maybe you could throw that at Tuffy and see what he does with it.
You talking about the lamb?
Yes.
So something that has become one of my favorite things to cook is lamb neck.
I've never had that.
They're amazing. I mean, I think you got to get somebody to process it for you, but they're gonna, they're nice and big, kind of like they look like an ossobuco, but the bone to meat ratio is probably 50-50. So there's a heck of a lot more bone in there, and it's a little wonky, but to me, it's the best tasting part of the lamb.
Get out.
It's amazing. So I don't know if you used it before. We do. Yeah, we do. Not a lot. It's not a huge mover. It's not something that a lot of people
it is now
about, but yeah.
So is the lamb collar similar to a pork collar?
No, it's really unique. It's like so the collar, the lamb collar is just, you got a lot. Like I said, there's a lot of bone in there, and the bone is it's almost like that. If you know how your spinal column looks, like the vertebrae, that's kind of how the boning is. It's kind of shingled in there.
Does it get the what I would call the copa though? Does it get that muscle on it?
Not really. No.
Okay.
I should have taken a picture and showed you all, but it's
it needs to be braised. It needs to be long cooked and cooked until it's tender. So playing with Clint's game and lamb, I mean, I go back to the things like rosemary or thyme.
Classic.
The herbs like that would be really good, but we could also go into I don't know if things like a little touch of caraway or something that's robust that way. But
Tuffy, what's great with lamb is lavender.
Lavender would be nice. But I just think getting something that's going to keep up. How old is this lamb? It's is it pretty mild?
Yeah. So this is all domestic stuff. So it's not gamey at all. Yeah, it's definitely mild.
So I mean, I'm gonna come up with some kind of flavoring mixture, whether it's spice or herbs, and it's gonna be something that's a little bit more robust. It's gonna have plenty of garlic in there, and maybe shallots and get that flavor on there. But then I'm gonna brown it really good. I'm gonna sear that collar and brown it really well, and then I'm going to deglaze it with, I don't know what I'm going to deglaze it with. I'm going to I got to figure out what the end preparation is going to be, because I'm going to make a stock from those bones in the end, but I got to get that meat off of there, and because I haven't, let me ask you this, what's the weight of it?
So it's probably about roughly a pound, maybe a touch larger, 16, 18 ounces.
So it's 50% bone, so you're getting 8 ounces of meat.
Yeah,
but that's raw weight. You're not going to get 8 ounces of weight, so you're going to probably get what?
Well, if you're braising, you're not going to lose much. In fact, you're going to gain collagen from the bones.
I didn't follow that thought, Meathead. What were we saying?
Oh, if you're braising it, you're not going to lose a lot of drip loss as you might if you're grilling. So you'll have pretty close to 8 ounces of meat if it's 50-50, and you'll extract some collagen from the bones, so you might actually end up with 9 ounces.
I wonder if you could make something like almost like a potted meat type of thing, where maybe do like a play on a rillette where
Yeah.
it's spread and it goes
Nice
in a
spread.
pan, and then you do some nice toast points with it.
It'd be perfect for that.
Yeah.
Hey, with all that collagen, you might be able to get a gilet,
Yeah. Yeah.
over the top.
Now
Yeah.
the box set of my Ryan and Tuffy game will be out in 2021.
Oh,
in the
so
spring.
but see, so first Allen Brothers and Ryan got to ship me all these products.
Yeah.
We will do that.
Well, we're gonna talk because
We
I
will
got to
do
get
that.
some of that neck, and
Yeah.
so we'll be in touch. And Cheeks, I'm Hamadura, who's a really fine cook, a Humidora. I'm sorry, guy. I always mess up your pronunciation. He's saying that lamb neck is really good with fennel.
Yeah, I would see fennel being great.
Yeah. So he's from Argentina. So
He also mentioned doing a pork crown roast for the holidays, which is a spectacular showstopper.
Makes a nice presentation, but
Yeah.
I think probably one of the most wonderful things that the USDA has done in a really long time, when they knocked back the recommended internal doneness on pork from 165 to 145, that was a beautiful thing. Now, we haven't had a documented case of trichinosis, I think, probably in the States since the 50s or something like that.
bear meat.
You know, we changed the way we're feeding the hogs, but more pork chops, more pork loins, more pork tenderloins have been destroyed by overcooking them. And I think Meathead, based on our conversations with turkey, we probably play around with the same idea when it comes to pork.
Pork chop for me is 135 to 140 max.
Yeah, and you know, and understand that it's gonna, you know, we keep talking about carryover cooking, but it's gonna happen there too. And there's nothing wrong with eating pork that's pink. And
I mean, you treat it just like you would a steak. It's a muscle meat. Your bacteria are not getting in there. I wouldn't cook a pork chop much more than I would cook a beef steak. Hey, I got a fun one for you. Beth, ask me what my favorite part of the turkey is.
Well, I was just gonna say that if y'all send me any of these cuts of meats, I'm calling Tuffy and Ryan to help me out. But Meathead, what's your favorite part of the turkey?
The Pope's nose.
I knew you were going to say that.
I was in a Japanese restaurant where they were grilling them. Now, the Pope's nose is slang for the tail, and that's that little knob that sticks out the back end. And it's got some bone in it, but it's about 50% fat and 50% meat, and it's got skin all over it. And this Japanese restaurant was skewering them. And they were just skewering them and getting them sizzling. And oh my God, was that good. And I just love, you know, that piece never gets to the dinner table.
No, but it's popular in exports for sure. That's where it goes. It's not a domestic thing. Same with the paws. We don't eat those here.
Can I buy like a bag of turkey tails?
I don't know where you could get them unless you got them just from a butcher or something. But they're definitely a international thing, not a domestic thing.
Isn't that interesting? So they go to Japan.
I got another question. When we were looking at the dry aging room, it got me thinking of the Tuffy. You remember the old smokehouse in Smithfield? I think it's gone now.
yeah.
What is everyone's opinion during the holidays, country ham or city ham?
Ooh.
That's
I
not a
have never
question.
gotten friendly to country ham. I was in Kentucky a few years ago, and I went out for 2 solid days and hit like 4 ham producers every day. And they're just wonderful to visit. They're just fascinating, beautiful facilities. They're real craftsmen. They're real artists. The
I have
buildings.
10 hanging in my basement right now.
But I just didn't
Country
care for
ham.
the flavor. Is it a country ham?
I've been curing my own. I've got some that have been curing for over 2 years.
Oh my
Really?
goodness.
How do you do that?
Well, so I actually I've had numerous conversations, but I actually I had somebody in Kentucky who's like the ham whisperer.
Which one?
Dakota. He does hams for like Sean Brock and but anyways, he would tell me a little bit. He wouldn't tell me everything. But anyway, so it depends on the thickness of the ham and the weight and there's a formula. There you go.
This is from Broadbent in Kentucky.
Well, anyways, I'm doing a combination of salt and sugar and black pepper, and it's done in the refrigerator for a number of days, and then it comes out, and then I wrap it in actually pillowcases or cheesecloth, and they hang from the rafters in my basement. And
Wow.
I've gotten some amazing stuff. I can't sell it, but it is so good.
What else is hanging from the rafters in your basement?
Myron.
I mean, I've got country hams hanging, and then I've got my vintage collection of Weber grills down in the basement.
No, you're not doing like charcuterie down there?
No, not yet.
One of these years, that's my goal, to learn to do my own charcuterie at home.
I think I'm getting ready to go into a new chapter of cooking with fire, and I think it's going to be. Hold your ears, Ryan. Hold your ears, Beth. It's going to be, I think, lots of vegetables and doing some new things with non-meat items.
This
I'm down with that. We've got a vegetarian in the house, so I'm doing a lot of vegetarian grilling these days.
Tuffy and anybody else, you remember the Netflix series on Chef's Table? This is the guy in Australia. You remember that?
Yeah.
That show?
Yeah.
This guy, this is his cookbook.
Yeah, he's doing some really cool stuff.
He is really doing some cool stuff.
That's crazy what he does. Watching that thing, that was pretty interesting what he's doing. Even with the beef, aging that beef as long as he's aging it, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that actually that's a butcher shop. It's not his. He buys from them. It's a butcher shop. It's like a jewelry store, and it's amazing.
Victor Churchill, I think it's called, right?
I think so, something like that.
That's true. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Well, I can recommend his cookbook. You're not likely to be cooking a lot of things here because, for the listeners who are not familiar, Netflix did a series, The Chef's Table. They've been doing this for years, and they did a 4 or 5 part section on barbecue and smoke, and they focused on. Oh God, I'm just drawing a blank. Tuffy, my brain is old man. What's her name down in Texas?
Tootsie.
Who?
Tootsie.
Tootsie. What a wonderful segment they did about her.
She's a wonderful lady.
One of the others is this chef in Australia who trained in Spain. But
Sweden, right?
Pardon?
It's not the one in Sweden that trained at Il Bulli.
No, this is he's in Australia. Lennox Hasty is his name, and he trained in Spain. His restaurant, everything is cooked on wood. The kitchen is an open kitchen, and everything, I mean, from soup to nuts, is cooked on wood. And he's really into it. And the book has a lot of really interesting tips. I'm experimenting. I've been doing a lot of cooking over wood lately for my new book. And it's a lot of fun. It's different. If you want to experiment with it, the first step is getting small splits. Don't work with the big logs. If you're grilling, and I've been having, well, you saw the grapevine experiment. Yeah, it was fantastic.
I have a chop saw and an electric wood splitter, and Clint knows this about me, but all
this wood is perfectly sized like this.
Yeah. I generally try to run the smallest fire that I can to bring up to the cooking temperature that I want so that that fire can breathe. So I will whittle them down to next to nothing sometimes.
Yeah, in fact, that your barbecue stars video, you talked about that. It impressed me.
Hey, just to go back a little bit, we've got somebody in the audience asking Tuffy, do the country hams need to be boiled, or can I just soak it and then throw it in the smoker?
So for mine, I have just sliced it and done a quick sear on there. This umami kind of hazelnut nuttiness. It's really amazing. I mean, I took and trimmed one and then rendered that fat down, and the smell of this fat was just like unbelievable. But they're not overly salty. They're really. I couldn't get over the flavors and the smells that I was getting from these hams.
Well,
Huh.
let me recommend, if anybody out there is interested in trying some, this is the catalog from Broadbent's. One of the better, I visited about 12 or 14 down in Kentucky. This is one of the better producers. And you can just, they're in Kuttawa, Kentucky, Kuttawa, Kentucky. Just look up Broadbent Hams. That's it. Broadbenthams.com and order something to try, because I think it's reminiscent of aged beef. There are distinctive flavors in there that if you're accustomed to a fresh steak, an aged steak might startle you. If you're accustomed to city ham, country ham may startle you.
Yeah, if you're used to the spiral ham that Grandma served
Nothing
every
like it.
Christmas and Thanksgiving, it's a completely different game.
But
But
it's
there
fun.
are some hams out there where they recommend soaking it in cold
Mhm.
water to pull out some of that salt. But a lot of country hams out there don't require that.
Now, are any of you guys hunters, or do you deal with venison at all? Kenneth Calhoun is asking, I lost half any suggestions for not overcooking extremely lean meats like venison roast
Oh, there's a
or
good
ribs
question.
or even backstrap?
Here was something so I'm a hunter. I like to hunt and fish. And then as I was working on my cookbook, it just so happened that as I was developing and writing the book, that duck season was in. And so I did some duck recipes, goose. I did a goose pastrami recipe. And I did venison too. And Meathead knows this deal. When you're working on a cookbook, you want to make sure that whatever recipe you write actually works. And so I made recipes many times. I just kept practicing them because I wanted to make sure that they would turn out. And one of the things that I found interesting about venison, and a lot of people there's many people out there that'll say, especially when it comes to wild venison, that they don't like the flavor. It's strong, it's gamey. But what I found is the more that I cook that meat, the more pronounced that strong gamey flavor, how it became more pronounced. But when I did, when I like the backstrap's a perfect example of, if I just cooked it rare, medium rare, that gaminess was a lot less noticeable. So the more I cooked it, the more gamey it got. And I did a venison. I think I did a venison. I've done a bunch of things. I've done like a venison meatloaf. I've done a venison stew before. I've done just a simple backstrap where it's grilled. But I just know that the more we cook it, I think the stronger those flavors become.
That's interesting.
Well, I think it's we're 2 hours in, and it's past my bedtime.
Mine too. Guys, it's good to see y'all. I just I can't wait to see y'all face to face.
Yeah. Hey, come to Chicago sometime, and we'll both tromp over to Ryan's place.
Yeah.
It's just about 10 miles from my house. We'll go over there and we'll take the tour. We'll hand pick some meats. We'll come back to my place and cook them.
That sounds great.
And Beth,
Me.
I have been touting a technique for turkey for some years that many, many followers have cooked, thousands. And it's extremely good and very popular. And when you come to Chicago, I'd like to show you how I handle turkey.
Great.
And one of the secrets is I put a drip pan underneath with everything you need to make a stock, and I make a stock right under the dripping bird in the smoker. And that stock is just breathtaking, and that's my gravy and also my soup. I make turkey soup, and I drink that stuff for a week by the cupful. Clint, thanks for organizing this. And
yes, Ryan and Beth, it was a pleasure meeting you guys, and I'm sure we'll do much more in the future. Tuffy, I've missed seeing you and giving you a big old hug this year, but we will see each other on the road very soon, I'm sure. And yeah, everyone get out there, cook up some good
Pleasure
stuff.
to meet you.
Yeah.
Beth, I met before. Ryan, I look forward to coming and doing a tour. Meathead,
Please.
Clint, thanks for having me.
happy holiday, everybody in the
Thanks,
audience
everybody.
too. We'll be posting the recording of this in a couple of days. Everybody be safe this holiday. We don't want to lose any members of our Pitmaster Club. And we'll see you again next month. Clint, what's the theme of our next event?
Oh, geez, I'm just trying to make it to the end of 2020. We'll get to that in a minute.
Why don't we have one called Party, Party, Party?
Yes, everyone's
All
looking
right.
forward to.
Well,
the new
these have been
year.
fun, and you guys are great. And let's stay in touch. And l'chaim, to life.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
See ya.